All right, welcome back to Old Guy REI. Today, I have the privilege of chatting with a few really good friends. Um, Cody Evers is with us from Wisconsin. You've seen Mikey on my channel before. Mikey's in Oahu, and Jason Calabasetta is in Chicago, and I'm in California. So we were just talking the other day and thought it might be helpful to talk about some of the things that we came across starting our journeys, and we're all fairly new to real estate investing. So I came up with a list of thoughts, and we're going to start with those and see where it takes us. First, the first thing I was going to ask was what got you guys interested in real estate investing in the first place? And maybe Cody, you could start us off.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Glad to be on. I think, probably 5 or 6 years ago, I was trying to figure out like what other options I had besides, stock market or mutual funds. And it always kind of led towards the real estate. And that's something that's always piqued my interest. So, and I knew I had to do something different than, stocks and mutual funds because you need a lot of income in order to, maximize those out. So I kind of led towards the real estate side because there's things I could do there. So that's what kind of got me into it. Probably 6 years ago now is probably when I started.
Okay. How about you, Jason? What got you interested in it in the first place?
I was all kind of similar as Cody. I was all in the stocks, and that was my plan. Um, Doing the numbers on it and stuff, it doesn't seem like it was going to work fast enough, and I want to be done within like 8 years. So I actually was in the fire groups, financial independence, retire early, and Dion posted something in there about his portfolio and stuff. So I started following him, and the rest was all history. And I met all you guys, and a couple other people. That was it.
Perfect. Yeah. And Mikey, how about you?
Yeah, same. I started 4 years ago from a pain point where I would get a paycheck, then after 1 week, I'd lose the paycheck. Then I'd be hurting for the next paycheck coming in, and I realized I got to do something about this. So went on the Dave Ramsey path, got out of debt, and then just started saving aggressively. Then started investing into, retirement accounts. Tried that for 4 years and then experimented with crypto, but I was still, looking down the barrel of 65 and I just knew that wasn't for me. So then I just pivoted to real estate and being in Hawaii, I couldn't really afford anything with my salary. So that's when I met Mark, financial firefighter, and figured, give it a shot out of state.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like you guys all made me think of something that we're fortunate to have found, and we should probably mention all of the guys that have had such a huge influence on us. Dion Talk Financial Freedom has been awesome, a huge help and a good friend. The lumberjack landlord Matt Hawkins and Millennial Mike, who's investing out of state in Gary, Indiana, and of course Michael Zuber, who I think that was the starting point for me. I ran across him on Bigger Pockets, and then once I started watching him, as you guys know, he interviewed Casey Franchini on his channel, and she was the first mentor that we actually paid for her mentorship program. So, without those guys, I'm sure I wouldn't be here. And I also started, like you guys just mentioned, you guys know my story, but I was kind of desperate to get some kind of retirement income started because I had never planned for it, being self-employed and just working every day, and didn't really have a plan until I was scared one day and decided I needed to do something. So, and like you guys, I think I started looking up the retirement accounts and funding them as much as I could. Starting later, they give you more options to dump more into those each year, but even that wouldn't have, it would have been something, but it wouldn't have been nearly enough to really have a retirement on. And you guys have heard me say that, you know, I'm 60 now, and I obviously retiring early isn't really an option for me, but being able to retire comfortably now is going to be an option, just because we were able to start and we have some cash flow coming in that we would, I mean, even if Cynthia and I were talking today, and it's right now it's between $2,000 and $3,000 a month cash flow. And if we hadn't even started, I mean, you know, we would really be hurting. So, yeah, so that's why I'd been interested in real estate. I didn't know why, but it was just always in the back of my head that it could work. It could be a way out. And so I'm glad that we were able to try again after we lost all of our stuff back in 2007 and 8. Let's see. So I know, and if it's okay, I'll start this round because I'm, you know, going through losing everything, going through bankruptcy and all that. I think it was probably difficult. One of these days, Cynthia will get on here with us and talk about it, but I'm really happy and glad that she agreed to go at it again, because we lost everything the first time, or I did. So I think I'm pretty fortunate that she trusted me again to do it. And let's see, I know Cody, Miranda, your wife, we don't really chat too much with her or about her, but how does she feel about the real estate?
So it took a little while to kind of get her warmed up to the idea. Initially, we started with house hacking, and so we already had a house that we lived in originally. You know, pretty nice place, nothing too crazy, but it was pretty nice starter house. And we just started talking. It's like the only way we're going to be able to achieve our goals is if we do something to move the needle, and that was house hacking. So that's kind of where we got started. And it took her a while to get on board, but I think now over the years have gone. We've seen some of the results. We obviously have some hiccups along the way, but we can see where it's going. And I think that it just took a while. But she's been great and, willing to move. We've been moving a lot to get into that next house hack as we go. We're, on our fourth one. So it's definitely been a journey, but she's been great and been able to, really help us out. She's takes care of the kids at home and been able to be the rock there, so to allow me to do kind of the rest of the stuff.
And did you say she was a teacher?
She was a teacher, but then she this past year, after we had our second, decided to stay home.
Okay, yeah, that makes a sense for a lot of people. Instead of paying to have someone watch your child, that takes all the income for the second person. So that makes a lot of sense, and we're fortunate in that respect, I guess, because all our kids are older, and we don't have that concern right now. And Mikey, you have a long distance relationship. How does Cody think about what you're doing, or does she know what you're doing and why you're doing it?
Yeah, we talk about things, and she says whatever it takes so that we can be together sooner. So she's pretty much on board for whatever I do, and I really appreciate that. So it's like, we're sacrificing now. She says I have to come see her at least once a year to go to Japan. So I said, okay, I'll do that. But if I do come out, then, we got to stay with your family, try to skimp and save as best as we can. So whatever we can do to sacrifice now, and then hopefully later down the road, it'll pay off.
Yeah, that's good. I think what I've been thinking lately about things like that, because you talked the other day about, you want to go because you invest in Pittsburgh, you want to go there and check out properties, check out areas, meet some of the other investors in the group that have come around since we started, and hopefully going again to the ORAD event this year, and and then going to Japan. I mean, those are three kind of expensive trips that could hurt the down payment for the next property a little bit. But like people have been saying recently, and I think Cody, you said it well the other night, just about enjoying the journey, right? Don't just clamp down and don't spend a penny thinking it's going to get you to the next property faster, which it would, but at what expense, I guess. If you're miserable trying to save that down payment, then that's not helping either. So I thought about that too, because you guys know we were talking about going to St. Louis to check out our triplex and things like that. And Cynthia brought it up the other day that maybe she shouldn't go because that would save half the expense of going there, so that we could, continue. And for us, getting a few more doors, the faster we could get a few more doors, the cash flow is going to help us, quite a bit. So that's something that we've been talking about recently. And then, so we all are we're all still really new. I think Cody and I probably started the earliest. We started buying in 2021 after re-education. And then were you about the same time, Cody?
September of 2020 is when I bought my first place.
Okay. Yeah. And then, Mikey, you started
in late March of last year.
Okay. So about a year.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jason, you're the newest. When did you close on your?
A couple months ago, February 2nd.
Yeah. And that's one thought that, one thing I've been thinking about too, is because, we have some other folks in the group that seem to be stuck in analysis paralysis, but you educated yourself for about 6 months and then took the jump, right?
And I know me. I would have never done it if I kept focusing too much. So I just said, I'm gonna buy it and figure it out as I go. And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's great. So we're all pretty new at it so far. And I think that's one of the nice things that maybe some people who will watch this can relate. And did you guys have any concerns? Like, what were your concerns before you got started? Was there anything that held you back a little bit, Cody?
I think the uncertainty definitely held me back a little bit, but there's a certain point where I was like, I just gotta do it, right? And then kind of learn as we go. Even if it's not a slam dunk deal, it's still better to get into the game. And I thought that house hacking was the easiest way to do that because, you could always afford the other set, like the total payment by yourself. So living in it was a huge help for me because it was like slightly more than our house payment was when we first bought it, if we were the only ones paying it. But after the other side paid, then we were, $400 or $500 net. So way less than what our typical housing payment was. So that's what kind of got us started. And I think the big jump for me was buying the first property that wasn't a house hack. And that was, I think, a little bit more scary than the house hack even, because then it's needs to support itself versus our income applying to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think house hacking, learning about it from you guys and seeing some of the other people in the group that are doing it, we've actually discussed it too. And you know that part of our story where our primary is our biggest expense at like $3,000 a month. And I don't think it would have been an option before, but even Cynthia sees the benefits in it. And if you can find the right location, like Dion always says, it doesn't have to be a side-by-side duplex. It could be two little houses on one lot or something where you're not attached to your neighbor. So she's even, would consider it because she could see how much it could save us.
Yeah, and there's like when we first did it, we actually got more square footage of space, and like it was actually a bigger place on that second one. By square footage, it wasn't huge, but it's not like we downgraded. Like we weren't going to, live in a lower unit, right? So it was a side by side. We had our own space, own everything. So all we did was share a wall, and that was what we were comfortable with. I know some people have, rent by rooms, but that's just something that we weren't willing to do at the time. Something I probably could have did when I was a lot, younger. But as we, have a family and all that stuff, we need our own space, and we're not willing to give that part up at all.
Yeah, good. How about you, Mikey? Was there anything, well, for you and Jason, from the outside, it doesn't look like there was anything holding you back, because in Mikey's case, you ran across Mark and he gave you contacts, and then what happened?
Yeah, I always tell you guys, I should have followed more what Jason did because he did it right. I went way too fast. I rushed into things, and as soon as I know it, I'm contingent on a property. I'm like, what do I do now? And then that's when I'm scrambling. I'm learning from the REI Avengers, and it's like pretty much you're just jumping into molehill, and just trying to climb your way out because you're always facing all these challenges. But it's true, once you just get over that first one, then it's like that second one is, a lot more easier because you've been through everything. So it's a lot less challenging that second time around.
Yeah. And then I say, with Jason, I didn't know you very long, Jason. And, I think we talked a little bit, and then you got your property, and you can chat about that in a minute. But after I realized that you had only really been studying or learning for 6 months, I was surprised at how fast you moved. And what did you end up buying?
A fourplex. I did that because Millennial Mike, I was looking in Gary because it's not as expensive to get started. He's like, well, you should really start with the fourplex. So then I put in a search for a fourplex with my agent here and in Chicago and in Indiana. And she sent me the one. I'm like, wow, that looks really nice. The numbers work. I'm gonna put an offer in. That was my first offer, and it got accepted. And then I was very nervous. But everything so far has worked out well. And the thing that really sold me on it, like that was holding me back, was I had like $130,000 saved up for it, and I could put that in my stocks, and I know it'll grow. But then Dion said, you're not really moving it from a bank. Like to get rid of it, you're moving it into a building, so it's still there, and that's what that helped me get through it and buy it basically.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we're all into long-term buy and hold, looking at it that way helps too, because if the property values did dip a little bit or something like that, you're planning on holding it for a long, long time. It's going to recover just like the stock market will, right? So yeah, I think that was a good bet.
Can't touch the stocks until you're old. That's why part of the reason I got into real estate, because I don't want to wait that long.
Yeah, and that's another. We were going to get into mindset and things that we've learned here in a minute, but that's something that I realized after listening to the guys, talking. You can have $1 million in stocks, and it doesn't do you any good until you're old enough to pull it out, and then you're going to pay taxes on it depending on what kind of accounts you have it in and things like that. So that's a great point. And so, are there any what we would call mindset shifts that have happened with you guys since you started investing? I could give you some examples of mine to get us started, maybe. And I think about things like we talked a few minutes ago about things like the interest rate, and it being for investors right now. The last couple of qualifications that I did, one was 7, like last week, and this week it's 7.5. And I think it doesn't bother me because the deals that we're looking at still cash flow as much as we need them to cash flow. Like, we have basic requirements. For example, we like to get at least $200 positive per door and 10% cash on cash return. So if you can still get that with the 7.5% interest rate, that all works. But before, I would have thought, with rates going up, I'm not even going to think about it because it's going to be so expensive to buy a place. So that was one of the things that that I realized. And the other one is maybe a mindset, and part of the learning process is just that I always thought I was getting in to whatever good thing was happening at the time. I was getting in too late, and all the good was already gone, and I just got the tail end of it. But with lending, I have learned over the last couple of years that every week a new program comes out. So one ends and you're depressed because you missed your shot or whatever. But this week there's something new that's going to help investors keep on going. So that's been a big one for me, to not have that happen every time I miss an opportunity. And then the last thing for right now is missing out on a deal. So when we first started out, I kept thinking, like, I would procrastinate a little bit too long, and then the property went under contract, and that kept happening. And I'm thinking, man, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to get a property. But that isn't the case. There's always a deal next week or the week after that. You just have to be a little bit patient and not get discouraged, because it just seems like no matter what the circumstances are out in the world, there's always going to be something for us to buy. Do you, Jason, had you had any mindset shifts in your journey so far?
Just my saving habits have gotten better, I would say, with the idea mentally that I could buy something sooner.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty much it. It's been going well. I'm still waiting for something to go wrong that hasn't yet, because it seems like it's going too well. But I'd say that's it. Nothing else I can think of, at least.
Yeah, that's that's good. And I think, Mikey, you talked about that a little while ago, about waiting for something to go wrong. Besides that, are there any other mindset shifts that have happened for you?
Yeah, Zuber has talked about it, where, the way I looked at my job, it was kind of, I felt like I've hit my ceiling at my job. And he kind of made me see it in a different way, where now I look at it as it's a really good funnel for me, because I can use the savings from my paychecks to now, funnel it towards real estate. And having real estate, being able to kind of talk with everyone, I'm learning, how to network better, learning, how we communicate with each other, and trying to learn different, going through the boot camps and the courses. And it's actually allowed me to kind of grow this other part of myself. So I like that aspect of it, where it feels like even though I've hit the ceiling at my job, I can grow in different ways through real estate, and that's what I really like.
Yeah, a lot of good ways to think. How about you, Cody? Mindset. I think out of the four of us, even though you started about the same time we did, you just seem to have gone through so much more than we have. And your experience, the first time we started talking, it just felt like you've been doing this forever. And, you had all these different things you had done as far as different ways of buying properties and things like that. What mindset shifts have you realized over the last few years?
Yeah, I think the first one being sometimes you go through like a personal cycle. So when you first start out, you think you can just keep going to the next property, the next property, the next property. And what you soon realize is, like, you got to stabilize first before you can keep going. So it was interesting for me where it was like, instead of just the exponential growth, you just have to buy a couple, stabilize, make sure they're good to go, and then able to buy some more, and then make sure those are stabilized. And so it just takes longer than you think is probably like the biggest thing. It's shorter than the traditional, retirement, age rate, 60, 65, somewhere in that range, 30 plus years for, myself starting at like, around 30. But it does take a while. So then you kind of go through those personal cycles where you got to stabilize, if you have a couple bad months where you didn't have rent coming in, or you had vacancies or evictions or something like that, you just got to take the time in order to do those. So that was definitely one on that one. And then the other one is kind of stick to what you know is probably the next one that I learned, because I went from doing, just traditional long-term rentals in my immediate area to wanting to maybe branch out and do some other things. And what my kind of thought process has been now in the last couple months is go back to basics, do what you know, and that's going back to the long-term rentals, and just focus on that, and try not to break that focus. Shiny object syndrome is real, so keep the focus and do what you're good at and what you put the time in to do, and kind of eliminate the rest. So we sold some stuff off this year to kind of do that, and focus on what our original plan was. So I think that's helped keep that focus.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points. I think stabilization and optimization, I think they would have come around eventually, but it was kind of pounded into us by the lumberjack. And when we first bought all our stuff, I was like, you buy it and wait for the checks to start coming in, but there are things you got to do to make sure they come in, make sure you're not spending too much money at first to, all of our stuff is run by property managers since it's all out of state. So that's been a great lesson, and it should have been something I concentrated on right away, right? You get the property and you stabilize it like tomorrow, not next year. So that was something that I did wrong. And then you also mentioned picking a strategy, because when we first started out, and I guess, again, I don't want to harp on my age, but we needed something to get something rolling like right away, right? And in the beginning, you're looking at flipping and wholesaling and short terms and midterms and all this stuff. And I think it was Zuber that finally made me realize you just pick one thing and just do it, And
Mm-hmm.
once I did that, we were able to, it helped us move forward more quickly, instead of, how much money is it going to take me to buy this place and flip it, and can I do it from out of state and things like that. So that was a great point too. And something that you guys mentioned was waiting for something to go wrong. I think I had that thought recently, and like the other day, probably 2 weeks ago, we bought one place and had a new roof and did some work inside, and it's just going just great. And I was thinking, okay, when's it going to hit the fan? And then I got a call that the tenant reported a roof leak, and it was the place that just got a roof. So I'm like, okay, but I think that would have been hard to handle, or harder to handle, if that was our only rental, right? But since we have 7 other doors, even in the worst case, if half the roof had to be redone or something weird like that, those would have helped us absorb that immediate cost. But it was just a simple thing, a tree branch pierced the roof, and the roofer went out right away and replaced the shingles, and it was all good. So again, I think the faster the faster you jump in, and whether it's 2 or 3 rentals that you accumulate, those are going to help, even if one's vacant for a month or 2, right? The other ones, if you bought them right and they have a little bit of positive cash flow, it's going to help pay that mortgage. So I think as far as the rental aspect of our life, waiting for something to go wrong is now it's kind of something we kind of chuckle at and like, okay, we got to put out a little bit of money, but it's already covered because you're saving for repairs and maintenance out of each deal. And then one other interesting thing that we talked about this morning was because Cynthia's thinking next year will be her last year teaching. And so we were figuring out once everything that we have is finally stabilized, and I think we just have 2 properties that we still need to concentrate on, but the cash flow, say if the cash flow was going to be 3,000, and I think she was figuring we needed 2,000 to replace her income, 2,000 a month. And it was really tight there, but by the time she does retire, we'll have a few more rent increases and things like that. So, it will be even better by the time she stops working. And she has a couple of reasons that she wanted to go 1 more year, but that's going to help us as far as her W-2 income as well, purchasing a few more before she does stop working. So that was kind of cool to, and we've talked before about finding your number that you can retire at. And if it's $5,000 a month, and you think I need 30 units to cover that 5,000, but you get underway, and in 5 to 10 years, the ones that you buy are going to mature and the rents are going to increase. So, in 5 to 10 years, you might not need 30 anymore. Maybe you just need 15 or 20. So that was, I guess, a mindset shift for me, because you only need 30 if you buy them all right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I talked a little bit earlier about financial literacy and just the language. I think one of the people in the group recently who's new to our group, Dennis, was mentioning just the language of, the real estate investing community, and how at first it was kind of daunting, right? Because people tell you, go talk to a lender, go talk to an agent, and different things like that, but you feel kind of insecure because you don't know the language, and they might tell you something and you just agree and walk away when you don't really understand it. And now you're challenging them. Hey, wait a minute, that's not the way it's supposed to be, right? That's not what Dion said. You better check yourself. So I think that's gonna, and even me talking to you guys today is like, I don't know, we're all in it. We all understand everything that we're talking about. And then along with the financial literacy, it wasn't just about real estate investing, like I mentioned earlier. It's just in general about when you're planning your journey, you're thinking about insurance, and Dion says he's got 1 rental that covers his insurance and things like that. 1 rental that covers the payment on his truck, and 1 property that does cover something else. So it's kind of fun to look at it that way. And then with let's see. So I don't think we know, Jason, you got a 4-plex. Mikey, what does your portfolio look like right now?
Yes, the 2 single-family rentals
In Pittsburgh.
in Pittsburgh, yeah.
Okay. And Cody, what are you at right now?
I have 13 units, and 6 of those are duplexes, and then 1 single family.
And you were talking earlier, or maybe last week, about, because yours are under property management as well, and property management being a little bit of an issue. So you're switching half your portfolio over to another company.
Yep. So we're planning on switching, here in the next couple months to a different one, and kind of compare, how each do business and kind of go from there. And hopefully that'll help stabilize things even more and hopefully get to the optimizing level. So that's kind of what we're thinking, and hopefully that'll work out and either move them one way or another from there.
And Jason, you decided to take on property management yourself for now?
Yes. Yeah, me and Thumbtack, basically. I've used them a lot so far, which is good.
Okay.
It actually works out well.
Oh, good. What kinds of things have you used them for?
Plumbing, and I had all of the bathtubs reglazed, so I had a company do that.
Okay.
Just those two so far.
Okay. What did the tub reglazings cost you, if you don't mind?
$380 a tub because he gave me like a discount because I did all four at the same time.
Okay. Was that how much of an inconvenience was that for the tenants?
2 days they can't use the tub,
Uh-huh.
but he was only in the unit for 2 to 3 hours maybe, and then done. But it's got to dry, so they can't use the tub for 48 hours.
Yeah. That's good. And Mikey, you have property management.
Yes. And
And
trying similar to Cody, where, trying two separate ones, seeing how it goes, and then try to evaluate after a year, maybe.
okay. And maybe we might have a quick minute to chat about, we've been talking about insurance lately, property insurances, and a couple of my contacts, one being an agent in St. Louis and one being an actual insurance agent. So we've been shopping around. That was part of the stabilization and optimization of the properties, because when you buy them, you just get insurance no matter what, right? Just because you need to be covered for the mortgage company. And now going back and revisiting that to see what all the terms and conditions are on each policy. And I was getting policies for full replacement coverage, and in speaking with the agent, she was saying that herself, she has properties in St. Louis, and some of her investors just insure for actual cash value, which a while back I was talking about how when I was running numbers, the insurance number they were putting in their pro formas was like half of what mine actually were coming back at. And that's because they were estimating cash value and I was going for full replacement coverage. And so what they were saying was that, especially in the areas that we're buying in, for example, we bought one place cash for $60,000 and the replacement value of it is like $170,000. So you're paying your monthly fee to cover $170,000. But what these investors do is they cover it for what they bought it for, plus maybe 20%. And the 20% is for if anything catastrophic happens, then they'll have enough money from the insurance to clear the lot and sell the lot instead of rebuilding. And the insurance contact was saying too that if you did a full replacement and you built a new place for 170, it's kind of too expensive for the area, if that makes any sense. So he put it like you're kind of betting that you're gonna need to replace the whole house if you're paying for full replacement coverage. So I think on three of the properties that we have will probably go to cash value. And for example, the St. Louis property, we bought it for 70, so we're insuring it for 20% more. And that payment went from $1,100 a year to $596. So it's quite a savings. And again, it's insured for the 20% more. So if it did need to be torn down, the people in the area say they have guys who will come and clear the lot and plant grass for like $7,000. So, you know, and then it would be ready to sell. Then you in that case, you take the money and invest it somewhere else. So, so that was just an interesting thing that I came across trying to do the stabilization. And I know it doesn't work in every market because 2 of our properties I'm going to leave at full replacement coverage, you know, the triplex and the duplex. They are more valuable properties, and those markets would, it would be better to rebuild than scrape it and sell the lot. But it adds quite a bit of, I would imagine that adds about $50 a month to your positive cash flow per door on those other 3. And that changes the cash on cash return quite a bit in those markets because the properties are, you know, not as expensive. Do you guys have any other thoughts on what somebody just getting into real estate investing might be interested to know? Or what you might, or what do you tell people who are, you know, interested in, have you found anyone interested? I know in my area, people think, oh, that's interesting, but they never pursue it, you know? Anybody have any thoughts about that?
I tried talking to a couple people about it. They're not interested at all, so I don't bring it up anymore. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's, and you know, like I've said before too, luckily I didn't hear about the first 5 years sucking right away because that probably would have stopped me as well. But that probably started coming about after we were already in 2.5 years or so, and we could already see the benefits, so it didn't matter too much. But a new person hearing that, they don't even want to wait a week for some kind of gratification, and you know, so they would be deterred really easily if they heard that right now. But thankfully, you know, all the, like the guys we mentioned earlier, they're all honest and they'll tell you. And I think about you know, you guys, you younger guys that, you know, have so much more time for your properties to take hold and start producing cash for you, and so that's really exciting for us to see. And like I said earlier, already having some decent cash flow with our portfolio being so new is encouraging. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, we're down to the last part of the interview, and Mikey and I have been doing song recommendations over the last couple of interviews. So I was just wondering if you guys listen to music and if you have any songs that are favorites of yours. I, being born in the 60s, went way back. So there's a group called Rare Earth and a song called Get Ready. It's if you find the long version, it's pretty cool. It's like 22 minutes long.
Oh, geez.
So Mikey, you talk about you driving around the islands and stuff. That might be a good one for you to listen to while you're driving, but that's mine. And Mikey, since we've done it before, why don't you go next?
Yeah, so I had to go out to Kona recently for a job, and the airport is pretty stressful. You know, all the people don't like peopling, so there's this band, Krungbin, and the song is May 9th, and it's just very laid back, very more instrumental based, and they're a band out of Texas. And I put that between my ears, and that really helped me calm down. And when I'm stressed out about real estate or anything else, just pop, a couple of minutes in my ears and helps me vibe out.
Yeah, I've like I mentioned before on some of our other interviews, nothing can change your mood as fast as, well, for me anyway, can change your mood so fast as a song, you know. And how do you spell the name of that group?
That's KHRUANGBIN.
BIN?
Yeah. And the two lead guitarists, they wear these jet black long wigs. So kind of a funny, funny.
And the song was Mainline. Okay.
Yeah, May 9th.
How about you, Jason? Are you into any music?
I listen to mostly like heavy metal and stuff, which nobody's probably gonna like any of that. But something a little more calmer that I think people would like. It's an interesting song, I think at least, is "Ball and a Biscuit" by the White Stripes.
Ball and a Biscuit?
Yes.
I think the titles are more entertaining than we listen to everything. I've told Mikey, from gospel to country to hip hop and even some heavy metal. We used to have a friend, both of us had a friend that we worked with, and he got me into Iron Maiden.
Okay.
So
I'm a fan.
yeah, Iron Maiden is right on. How about you, Cody?
So it's actually interesting. I've been listening to so many like podcasts and all that kind of stuff. It's hard to I don't listen to music too much anymore, to be honest with you. But usually, I'll go back to like 90s, early 2000s stuff. So like 90s country or rap or like that kind of stuff for early 2000s. So I don't know if I have a specific song or anything, but that would be kind of the genres going back to then that I'd be into. So
Okay. Yeah, when Cynthia and I got together, it was back in the 90s and country was real big. But going back a little further, like George Strait and all those real country guys. But
Yep.
when we were getting together, it was like Garth Brooks and forget some of the female artists. But yeah, we really like country. Nowadays, Trisha Yearwood and it was a funny thing, because I have earpods that I sometimes can wear at work and listen to music while we work. And sometimes I'll try to listen to podcasts, but I work with my cousin. And it seems like whenever I'm trying to listen to a podcast, he either has questions or he's whistling real loud or singing. And I'm like, just be quiet, please, so I can listen to Dion or whoever. But yeah, so recently, like Jason Aldean, Chris Stapleton, guys like that, John Pardee, that's some good country. But I was telling Mikey that I was getting into all these new country songs, and then when I looked them up, I realized they were came out like 8 years ago, and I'm like, where was I 8 years ago?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's the stuff we listen to as well. So like if I don't have a podcast on, it's usually like the older stuff like that, typically.
yeah, that's
I
cool.
don't know any new music at all.
No,
I don't
really?
listen to it. I don't have anywhere to even listen to new music anywhere. So I listen to all the old stuff I always liked.
Yeah, well, what I did, and being technologically challenged back in the day, for example, if there is an artist that you do like, just say Iron Maiden for some reason, and you go to Pandora and you make a station, an Iron Maiden station, and then it's not just all Iron Maiden, but a bunch of other bands in that same genre will come up, and I've discovered a lot of new artists that are really cool that way. So. Yeah, well, thank you guys. I appreciate you taking the time to do this today, and being with us every week. And the Zoom call's grown quite a bit. So the other thing that I would mention before we take off is just the network that's been growing, and how much I know it's affected us a lot in a positive way, just knowing and talking and hearing more people tell their stories. So hopefully that'll keep going strong. But I appreciate it. Hopefully we can do it again when you guys have time.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you guys all again. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Jason,
Yep.
Thanks for jumping in.
Of course.
What's that?